So anyone who can tell me about the rule and obligation of the executive branch? Yes, that's correct. Executive branch is the one who implements and execute the laws and policies of the entire governing states. To discuss our main topic for today, let us all remember our most essential learning competency is all about the analyze the rules and powers of the executive branch of the government. Our learning targets or objective for this lesson are as follows. First, define the executive branch of the government. Second, identify the qualification and terms to become a president of the Philippines. And enumerate and explain the rules and power of the president. So in this video, we will tackle about the concept or nature of the executive branch of the government. Second, the composition or structure and qualifications and terms. Okay, the power of the Philippine executive branch according to the 1987 Constitution. So we are now on the first question. What is the executive branch of the government? The executive branch of the government in charge the and administrations of the country's laws in general. This branch set the directions of national policy. As being president, the role of the executive is to enforce and administer the laws of states. Now, and according to the Constitution, Article 7, Section 1, the executive power is vested to the President of the Philippines. Now, as being president, he has the power to implement the policy in order to protect the welfare of the citizen and provide, especially in times of pandemic, the president should make a right decision to address the needs of people when it comes to health and food security. So here we go on the second question. What are the structure under the executive branch of the government? The highest executive power is vested to the president, and next to him is the vice president. And as stated on 1987 Constitution, the vice president may concurrently assume a cabinet position should the president of the Philippines offer the former one. The vice president will become a secretary concurrent to the position of vice president, just like Vice President Lini Robredo. She is the one who is the chairwoman of the Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council, and that is her assignment as being member of the cabinet. Aside from the being cabinet post, the vice president is mandated to assume the presidency in case of death, disability, resignation of the incumbent president. And next to the vice president is the cabinet secretaries. They are the one who task or to give advice the president on the different affairs of the states, like the problem or concern in agriculture, Department of Budget, Finance, Education, Social Welfare, National Defense, and Foreign Policy. They are nominated by the president and then presented to the Commission on Appointment, now which is the body of Congress of the Philippines, the one who affirms all appointment made by the head of states for confirmation or rejection. Next is the qualifications of the president and vice president. The qualifications of the president and vice president is the same under the Constitution. Is summarized on the table. Now the qualification. Number 1, citizenship. Both president and the vice president shall be natural-born citizen. A natural-born citizen, as mentioned in the Constitution Chapter 3, is the citizen of the Philippines from birth without having to perform an act to acquire or perfect his Philippine citizenship. Number 2, you must be a registered voter. A registered voter is the one who is duly registered in the list of voters because he possesses a qualification for suffrage as required in the Constitution in the Article 5, Section 1. It stated, Suffrage must be exercised by all citizens of the Philippines not otherwise disqualified by law and who are at least 18 years of age, who shall have resided in the Philippines for at least 1 year, and in the place where they propose to vote for at least 6 months immediately preceding the election. No literacy, property, or other substantive requirement shall be imposed on the exercise of suffrage. Next, in education. The Constitution does not provide a higher level of educational attainment for those who want to be a president or vice president. Presumably, the Constitution wants to widen the access to this position to many people as it can. It only requires candidates to be able to write and read in order to qualify to that position. Where in fact, many presidents of the Philippines were highly educated. In fact, some of them are our Bartap Nature, a brilliant lawyer like Marcos, Rojas, and Macapagal. Number 4 requirement, age. The presidential and vice presidential candidates must be at least 40 years of age on the day of election, nor not on the day of filing candidacy or on the day of their proclamation. Last, residency. The Constitution requires that those who want to become a president or vice president must be acquainted with the economic and political condition of the country in order to gain insight on how to run the country in case they are elected into the office. Thus, it requires that both candidates must reside in the country at least 10 years immediately preceding the election. Term of office and election. In 1987 Constitution, the term of the president is 6 years without re-election, even though he is disqualified for re-election, but he is qualified to run for a lower position after finishing 6 years as president, as in the case of former President Arroyo, who ran as a congresswoman of Pampanga after finishing her term. The vice president, unlike the president, is eligible for re-election, but the Constitution disallows him or her to run for more than 2 executive terms, according to the Constitution, Article 7, Section 4. Moreover, the vice president who has succeeded and served as a president for more than 4 years, even though as an acting capacity, he is disqualified for election in the same office at the same time. So just like Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, he continued the term of Erap Estrada, but less than 4 years. That's why he allowed by the Constitution to run as a president on the second term. Okay? Another one is voluntary renunciation of the office of the vice president for any length of time does not interrupt the continuity of the service not to the full term of 6 years. Thus, if the vice president resigns on the second day in office, he is considered being served as full 6 years. So, he or she disqualified to run for the next election. We are now on the third question. Why president is a vital position in the governing states? Yes, that's correct. As being president, he or she has sole authority to manage the entire country. That's why the Constitution vested him a power and authority as being head of states, such as number 1, administrative power. Number 2, power of appointment. 3, military powers. 4, pardoning powers. 5, powers to contract and guarantee foreign loans in behalf of the Republic of the Philippines. And 6. Budgetary powers. All this authority vested to the President will be discussed. How the executive branch of the government relate to the principle of structural and functionalism theory by Durkheim. I will relate this topic to the structural functional theory in the DISS class. It says that society as a structure with interrelated parts designed in order to meet the biological and social needs of individual in that society. Emile Durkheim, as a sociologist, believed that society is a complex system of interrelated and interdependent parts that work together to maintain stability, and that society is held together by shared values, language, and symbols. That's why the executive leader is belong to the government institution, which is interdependent from other institutions who are doing their jobs. If we go together, we will achieve the so-called success and achieve our goals as one nation. How do you compare the executive branch of the government to the topic of TLE subjects? In comparison, the executive branch of government is related to the TLE subject. It's just like a topic of dressmaking, whereas there are underlying steps or instructions on how to create a dress. In the illustration shows the comparison and relation of both subjects. So in dressmaking, there are certain steps or instructions that have to follow in making a dress. However, on the next column, executive leader has a procedures on how to impose a contingency plan for COVID action. So let's proceed first on the dressmaking. On the steps number 1, you should have to plan the garment design. Now, in order to give satisfactions of our client, now we should have a design. The second one, take a client's body measurement in order to know the exact measure of the client. And the third one, you should create a draft basic, which means a black pattern, in order to have exact size and design of the cloth. And final, you should have to cut the pattern. For the executive leader, we should have to follow some procedures. The first, to create or design a contingency plan. Second, we should have to identify the projected numbers of beneficiaries for the proposal of budget. And the third one, we must have to propose a draft for the approval of the higher office. And last, we should have to impose the target plan of our contingency action. Thank you guys and see you next time.